Ladies and gentlemen, students and scholars, teachers and trainers, professors and professionals, listeners and learners. Dear friends, today it is very nice time, nice place, nice action. You are listening language to literature, science to spirituality. How language come how language comes in the development of our society, nation. What is the starting of language? From where we learn language? How do we learn language? There are many questions related to it. Creates, generates in the minds of our scholars. Simply, it is said that our ideas, thoughts, intentions, opinions are the first stage of thoughts or language. The word is shrinking rapidly today. Advances in information technology, scientific knowledge, and applications have transformed a sprawling earth into a global village. Friends, earlier in 19th and 20th century period, you have read revolution in industrialization that came resultingly the whole world faced First World War, Second World War. In this 21st century, what do we feel? In this 20th century, what do we feel? There is revolution in information technology. What's the base of information? That is language. In our different departments, railways, post offices, communication, hospitals, administration, industries, agriculture, everywhere we see a revolutionary and visionary change today. How has it happened? Everything we see in the form of digitalization. What's the base of digitalization of the world? That is language. Without language, nobody can understand any kind of literature of any society or any nation. People of various cultures and nationalities now meet, interact, trade, socialize with ease on a daily basis. English becomes official language of the administration, medium of instruction, and subject of study in the Indian schools and universities. A knowledge of English is considered as necessary for activity, thought, and employment. Making this possible is the use of a common language. English English is used by over 500 million people across the globe. There are maximum speakers of English all over the world. Every country has its special features in providing different skills, styles, standards, manners. We observe it through their daily routine habits. One person out of every four persons in the world can be reached through English. 50% of the world's newspapers, scientific and technical journals, and over 60% of the world's trade or world's radio stations use English as a means of communication. It is also the official language of the UNO. Speaking English became a fashion. It is an important foreign language that has attained the status of link language in different countries of the world. It holds important place in education system. Even we can say that it holds unique position in India. Besides being a link, it is our major window to the modern world. Friends, today in this modern time, we appreciate language, specific language of the different countries. But when we look back in our past, in the beginning of this universe, where there was not the development of the script or dialect, there was only sound and light. That was the means or medium of communication at that time. How animals communicate today, birds communicate today, all natural objects communicate today, how these internal organs of the human body are interacting, connecting, unifying today, how the message starts inside the body, cell to cell, tissue to tissue, and organ to organ, system to system. Ultimately, how ideas and thoughts restored in the mind. how these ideas, thoughts come from the different internal channels of the organs in the human body. It is really amazing, miraculous, and magical musical today. Not only this time, but since time immemorial. We count the value of our human birth when we try to observe our human body, human mind, then words fall short, thoughts fall short. The field of spiritualism starts where the materialism ends. It is justified, it is said rightly. So, how we can change the unchangeable? How we can read the unread? How we can write the unwritten? How we can listen the unlistened? How we can hear the unheard? All are scholars in Indian and international universities. They learn this thing, they understand, they know that the nature is the common concept of all type of communications. In the nature, God provided its existence that we see in the form of their connectivities and relativities. Role of English language. English has been playing an important role in our educational system as well as in our national life. It was supreme in the pre independent India. Though in free India, English could not be allowed to occupy the position of privilege. This was acknowledged by all the persons. Consequently, it was decided that regional languages should be developed and that Hindi should replace English. Nothing can be said against these things. Independent India must have its own national language. Before independence, we see there was the maximum use of English all over the world, but especially English training was provided by the English officers, only some persons for providing them some official works, clerical works. After independence, Hindi got its existence, its value in the form of literature. Language was also the mean or medium that brought change, and that was the medium of receiving and sending messages. After independence, we see revolutionary and visionary change in the language. English language that covered, unified the whole world. Today, at social media platform, we see YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp. There are different functions we use today. It is the result of this modern technology. But in the true sense, we can say our scholars can be creative, operative, and generative by imagination. Imagination is the best educational technology that can bring revolutionary and visionary change in the minds, thoughts, and actions of the people. Language is called a social phenomenon because it has relevance only in a social setting. Language undergoes a continuous, though unnoticed, process of growth and change. It becomes sharp, crisp, refined, and versatile with the passage of time. Pick up the historical background of only language, of any language. You will be astonished to notice the major changes in spellings, meaning, pronunciation, and its connotation and denotation. Hence, language is a living phenomenon. In any language, we speak words, thoughts, and ideas on the basis of sound. Every sound word has the power to recreate, re energize us. When we speak, read, write, and listen any word in any language, that bring us, keep us in present, and it is the present sense of Lord or God in the form of energy that make us able to understand, to know something better, finer, nicer about our circumstances, about our surroundings. In its broadest and most general sense, language may be said to be any means of expression or mental concepts by any living beings whatsoever and of communicating them to or receiving them from other living beings. Language is a very complex human phenomenon. All attempts in define all attempts in define it have provide inadequate. In common parlance, it may be said that language is an organized noise used in actual social situations. That is why it is defined as contextualized systematic sounds. Patanjali defined it as that human expression which is uttered out by speech organs. Encyclopedia Britannica defines language as a system of conventional spoken or written symbols by means of which human beings, as members of a social group and participants in its culture, communicate. According to Sapire, language is a primarily human and non instinctive method of communicating ideas, emotions, and desires by means of a system of voluntarily produced symbols. According to A.H. Gardiner, language, in its widest sense, means the sum total of such signs of our thoughts and feelings as are capable of external perception and as could be produced and repeated at will. According to Henry Sweet, language may be defined as the expression of thought by means of speech sounds. According to Mario and Frank, a system of communication by sound that is through the organs of speech and hearing among human beings of a certain group or community using vocal symbols possessing arbitrary conventional meanings. Language is human, a verbal systematic symbolism, a means of transmitting information, a form of social behavior, high degree of convention, a language symbol system based on pure or arbitrary convention, infinitely extendable and modified, extendable and modifiable according to the beginning needs and conditions of the speakers. A language is a device that establishes sound meaning correlations, pairing meanings with singles of enable people to exchange ideas through observable sequences of sound. A language is audible, articulate human speech as produced by the action of the tongue and adjacent vocal organs. The body of words and methods of combining words used and understood by a considerable community, especially when fixed and elaborated by long uses a language. Dear friends, what are the characteristics and significances of language in human life? Since our childhood, how our mother taught us, how our parents teaches us, what words, sounds we learn initially. Language is a learned arbitrary system of vocal symbols by means of which human beings interact and communicate in terms of their common cultural experience. What are the characteristics of language? One is language is learned. The learning process may be natural or structured. It may be natural or structured. Two is language is a system. The complexity of the various facets, the complexity of the various facets of it are organically interrelated, such as sounds, words, and structures in integrated with one another and constitute the complex and organic whole which is called language. Language is a system of symbols. Its effectiveness consists in its usage when the symbols are commonly shared and known to all those who are sharing a common experience. The system is arbitrary. There is no logical relation between the words and the objects they stand for except for the Chinese and the other pictorial languages. Here again, the characters, though pictorial, do have any resemblance and the reality that they stand for. However, in sound languages, it is necessary that the sounds have a specific meaning. Language symbols are vocal. Language is primarily speech oriented. Its graphical representation comes later. In, may, in many languages, there is no graphical expression at all. They are only spoken and are considered adequate as they perform the basic function of communication. Language is relevant in a social setting and has meaning in as far as it expresses common cultural experiences. Languages, therefore, differ because cultures differ. Language changes. According to first Prime Minister of India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, who expressed in his thoughts that English works like a window of the world. We live in a changing world. We can't possibly think in terms of static state of affairs in language or anything else. Every language, maybe English, is a living language with the needs and requirements of speakers. It changes constantly and developing. Words are practically being bought and absorbed in the language from time to time. Significance of language in human life. Language covers the entire expanse of life. It preserves the best human thoughts and achievements with which enriches life. The scope of language widens with the enlargement of human activities. The larger the field of human functioning, the wider the extent of a language. One is social function, language, literature, and education. Social function of language, it has been said time and again that language is social. It operates in a social setting. It acquires meaning and significance in a social interaction. It is a means of communication between members of a community or between a community and community. It is capable of handling all references and meanings of a given culture. It is a means of expression. Cultural function. What is the cultural function of language? As a language is a part of the culture of a people and the chief means by which the members of a society communicate. It is wedded to culture, is inseparable from it, and hence performs a cultural function. The content of every culture is expressible in its language. Language and the individual. As a symbolic system, language either reports to, refers to, or substitutes for direct experience, whatever the case may be. Language cannot stand apart from or run parallel to direct experience, but completely interpenetrates with it. The expressive function. Language is a great force of socialization. Language is primarily a vocal actualization of the tendency. Interaction without language. The language binds the people into one large group called nation. The national language socializes the behavior of the whole nation, whereas the regional languages help integrate regional groups. Languages, the greatest and most potent force of integration. A static aspect of language. Language helps store culture experiences in the form of literature and other written records for the posterity. These cultural experiences form the nexus of individualization. It breathes life and are poets and dramatists. Short of a language, such fine arts were not possible. Aesthetic experiences are the treasure for the posterity to feel proud of it as a national treasure house. Misconceptions about language. After discussing the characteristics of a language, we might as well dispose of the following misconceptions about a language. One is languages are logical. We have already discussed that the symbols of a language are arbitrary and there is no logic in their representation. The sound and spelling arrangements affiliate each other according to usage and not logic. The famous quote that BUT is but, PUT is put. Now there is no logic. Similarly, the sound of T or tau changes according to its usage, as may be seen in the words literature, enough, far, philosophy, etc. The sounds of each again differs, whereas it remains ch in chair. The sounds of ch again differs, whereas it remains ch in chair, it becomes she in champagne. etc. Now, where is the logic? Various sounds require different character depending on its origin, usage, and words arrangement. Some languages are unlearnable. The existence of vocal organs group help a language to evolve as all human beings are gifted with similar vocal organs. Any language produced by these vocal organs can be learned if one has adequate will and perseverance. Even Chinese, which is considered to be a difficult language generally because of its sound patterns, can be learned with proficiency. The independence, the dependence of the word order on its various constituents necessitated learning of language of even the remotest of lands and people. Some languages are better than others, as all languages perform the function of communicating a common cultural experience. There is no distinction of grading amongst languages. However, languages may differ as to their refinement, growth, and application. Larger the application, larger the extent of its communication. Beside that, language should not be graded and compared. Each language is the best manifestation of the culture of the people that it represents. There are exact equivalent in languages, and languages are the expression of a variety of cultural experiences. They express their respective socio-cultural pattern the best. Hence, there are no exact equivalents. Yes, it may be translated to its nearest approximation. There are exact equivalents within a language. This is also a misconception. It will pose a language in a poor situation if it has sets of equivalents. Language should be rich in that one word symbolizes one exact experience. There will be shades of difference in their meanings, and in that lies the richness of language. I in ease, I in easy comprehension. We might have words having similar meaning but not exact equivalents such as sick, ill. Language must have graphical expression. As seen earlier, speech is primarily, and that there are many languages which have no script. These are oral languages and are only spoken. Place of English language in India. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was certainly correct when he said, English is our major window on the modern world. Its importance as an international language can be denied by one. It is only through English that we can establish social, economical, cultural, and political relations with each with other countries of the world. It opens a wide window of international relation for us. If we close this window, we will shut ourselves up in the four walls of our nationality. This will certainly bring about our decay and downfall because modern science has reduced the vast dimensions of the globe to the size of a small ball. Under such circumstances, we cannot ignore English. We should give Hindi the place of national language. But this never means that English should be completely eradicated from the Indian curriculum. According to University Grant Commission UGC, English is a language which is rich in literature, humanistic, scientific and technical. If under sentimental urges we should give up English, we should cut ourselves off from the living stream of ever growing knowledge. According to F.G. French, no language, ancient and modern, can be compared with English in the number of its speakers, writers, and readers all over the world. According to Champion, English literature in quantity and quality is second to none in the world. Development of English. This can be traced back to the period 1150 to 1400, ending with authors such as Chaucer and Gowen. Thus, up to the 15th century, it was period of Middle English with Chaucer. The uneclipsed sun of modern English began to rise and shine. The origin of the language can be related to Germanic language, although it plainly differs from them. Historically, it came to Britain as the language of the invaders, the Anglo Saxons, and the Jutes. Hence, it is felt that English is an offshoot of the Anglo Frisian group. Initially, there were about 170 million native speakers in 1920, and today 10% of the world population speak the language. It has become a language of universal culture, embracing many aspects of language. This has been mainly due to its flexible and liberal nature to adopt new changes. In the 16th century, the language was more subjective. Long sentences were used to explain simple things. In the 18th century, the language became or very laborious. The more difficult words and phrases were used, the better it was. But now the trend has changed. It is more simplified and the use of foreign words and phrases is prevalent. Importance of teaching English. The importance of teaching English in India as a modern foreign language lies in the form of international language. English claims to be the first rate international language. It can even be called a universal language. Hence, its knowledge promotes international understanding. Thus, it is very helpful in fostering true internationalism and cooperation among the nations of the world. Educational importance. English is a direct medium of acquiring a knowledge of modern arts, science, humanities, technology, etc. It is equally important for statesmen and politicians, scientists and doctor, engineers and educationists, businessmen and research workers. They enrich their knowledge and experience by reading English books and journals. Consequently, they contribute to the progress of their country, particularly when it is un- underdeveloped like India. Vocational importance. Study of English as a modern foreign language has tremendous vocational importance for us. It offers opportunities for many and varied vocations like diplomatic and foreign services, business, commerce, medicine, teaching, law, etc. Cultural importance. English widens one's cultural and intellectual horizon. It develops scientific, technical, and commercial relations with other countries. It imparts a knowledge of foreign nations and cultures. Thus, it further requires mutual understanding and cooperation. Disciplinary importance. The study of English enables a person to compare and contrast the good and bad things of his country with those of other nations. Thus, he acquires a new insight into various resources of thought and expression. Recreational importance. English is a good source of recreation and useful employment of leisure. Person knowing English can enjoy the best stories, drama, novels, etc., written or translated into English. Impact of other languages on English. English is universally renowned for its power of expression. It is the most effective medium for expressing even the most abstract and subtle thought and ideas. It enjoys this uniqueness because of its capacity to absorb words and expressions of other languages of the world. Of all the languages it came in contact with, the influence of Latin, the language of Homer, seems to be rather strong. Latin came into contact with, or one may like to say the other way around. English came in contact with Latin roughly between 15th to 17th centuries. This was the peak of the Latin influence on world literature. One is Latin was a mark of aristocracy and power. English absorbed a lot of Latin words. Some of the words are vindicate, sedate, semblance, incomparable, garrulous, in tone, crescendo, dulcet, resolve, modulate, etc. are all words borrowed from the Latin language and spoken as English by all its speakers. Open a French window. Another foreign language that has influenced the language of English, a outrains, is the French, the language of the BU Monde, fashionable word of France. It has lent a classical and ethereal vocabulary to English because of its soft and dulcet pronunciation. Though, unlike the words of the Latin language, the French words do not occur often in everyday use of English, yet they have to be used deliberately as the occasion may demand. The Greek avalanche, whereas foreign languages like Latin and French have given whole new words to the dictionary of English language. The Greek has lent valuable roots that have resulted in an abundance of rich and meaningful words that are part of our that are part of pure English. Due to these roots, the influence of Greek on the language of English is proof enough to the major impression of Greek in modern English. American onslaught. Besides the Latin, Greek, and French languages, also termed as the classical languages of the world, there has been a distinct influence of the American English on the English language. In fact, English is becoming increasingly Americanized as the present day fashion is to speak colloquial or slang language that is so common among the Americans. American English is here to stay and due to its immense popularity. Pure English is slowly fading out its use, being practiced only to the elite and sophisticated classes of the world and to political gatherings where it is part of the protocol. The Indian influence, having ruled India for almost 2 centuries. The impact of the English language on India and its people has been so strong and permanent that even today, after about 5 decades of political, social, and economical freedom, we are still in awe of the British tongue. But it has also been noticed that if English has left an indelible impression on our mother tongue, it in turn has picked up various purely Hindi words that are part of the language. Many words of the Hindi language adopted by modern English speakers, although many of these words have Persian or Arabic origins, shal, fakir, etc., and most of them are of the Urdu languages. Still, they can be said to be the Indian influence on the English language, as at the time when the British ruled India, a combination of Persian, Arabic, and Urdu was spoken by the Indian, especially by the kings of that era, who were Persians or Mughals. In fact, Urdu was then the mother tongue of the Hindustan, and the Britishers had to learn it in order to enable communication with the natives. Urdu was the court language. Thus, we find traces of our ancient heritage on the modern English language. Russian defense. Russia's parliament has drafted a law aimed at stopping the latest foreign invasion of the homeland. The rapidly growing number of English words and slang expressions infesting the Russian language. We must have a way to punish the mass media, educators, and politicians for corrupting the Russian language, says Mikhail Fedorov, an advisor to the Cultural Commission of the State Duma, which is preparing the law. Besides being affected by various foreign language, foreign tongue, modern English has developed many trends that have been brought about by modern English speakers. English as an international language. English is rapidly becoming a world language. It is the first language of the United Kingdom, the United States of America, Canada, and Australia. In addition, it is spoken and read by many millions of Europeans, Africans, Chinese, Indians, Japanese, and South Africans as a second language. It is widely known in India, Pakistan, Burma, and Sri Lanka, almost every country of the world. In short, one person out of every 10 in the world is a native speaker of English. One out of every four on earth can be reached with it. Everything of importance which happens day by day is printed in English in newspapers or spoken in English over the radio all over the world. 50% of the world's newspapers, over 50% of the world's scientific and technical periodicals, and more than 60% of the world's radio stations use English as a medium. The above facts point out that English is an international language. No language, ancient or modern, can be compared with English in respect of its international status. It is interesting to note that about one half of the mankind have chosen English to communicate with those who do not speak their own language. It is in this way that English helps in establishing international relations. It is the source of better understanding among different nations of the world. F.G. French, in his book Teaching English as an International Language, says that because of the rapid spread of industrial development, science and technology, international trade, and closer interdependence of nations, English has become a world language. It is the means of international communication. There is no other. English is international in the sense that it helps in interlinking the people living in different countries of the world. Thank you, dear friends, brothers and sisters, those who are listening. YouTube 3M Creator, it is really remarkable, praiseworthy, admirable, and appreciable. Your presence on this channel, my brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, students and scholars, teachers and trainers, professors and professionals. I once again thank all of you. Nice to see all of you. Nice to talk you. Thank you. Thank you.